Godzilla x Kong is one of those movies that you're gonna either absolutely love to bits or absolutely think is What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here, and as I do with all my movie reviews, I'm gonna give you a little bit of information about Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, who made it, what it's about, all that good stuff. Then I'll go into the things I did and did not like about the movie, the pros and cons, and finally, I'll let you know who I think it's for, if anyone. If that kind of thing sounds cool to you and you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies that are coming out in theaters and on streaming, make sure you subscribe. In Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, two ancient titans, Godzilla and Kong, clash in an epic battle as humans unravel their intertwined origins and connection to Skull Island's mysteries. Godzilla x Kong is, of course, an American-made giant monster movie and is the fifth installment in the MonsterVerse franchise. It's written by Terry Rossio, who's been around for a minute. He's the guy that wrote all of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the original Aladdin and Shrek, as well as Simon Barrett and Jeremy Slater, who has a couple of writing credits, including the Fantastic Four remake and the Death Note movie. It's directed by Adam Wingard, who directed Godzilla vs. Kong as well as that Death Note movie that I mentioned. And it's in theaters this weekend. It's rated PG-13 for creature violence and action, and it runs a little bit less than 2 hours long. The movie stars Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry, Dan Stevens, and Kaylee Hoddle, I think is how you pronounce her last name. She's the little girl from the other movies. Now, before we get into the pros and cons, my expectation going into the movie, let me give you that so that way you kind of know where I'm coming from. So I've seen all of the Godzilla and Kong movies in this American MonsterVerse, and I won't say that I'm a big fan of the series. I think I like them more than I don't, except for one in particular, and that's Godzilla King of the Monsters. I absolutely did not like that movie personally, but I'm definitely the kind of person that prefers the more serious takes on Godzilla and King Kong. So for example, Godzilla -1 I thought was a masterpiece. But I guess these movies in particular are just the kind of movies where you have to, turn off your brain and have fun and not be too critical about them. Now, that being said, this is a review, so let's get critical. But of course, we'll start with the pros. And the one big pro here is that this movie knows exactly what it's trying to be, and it nails that. It's a cartoon. It's a bunch of giant CG monsters just smashing things and fighting each other. So if you have that itch, this will scratch that itch. It also really expands the MonsterVerse, and really it made me curious to watch that series that came out recently called Monarch, the one that's about the organization that tracks all of these kaiju. After watching this, I kind of want to see more about what this organization does day to day. So good job for that. And with this movie, if you want to see more giant monsters being giant monsters in your giant monster movie, and you're kind of tired of all of the human side stories, well, then this is absolutely going to do what you want. And if I'm being honest, those are kind of all my pros. And now here's the thing, even though I don't have a lot of pros as far as my list of things that I liked about the movie, I think this is a good example of not everything having equal weight. So yes, I have a lot of problems with this movie, I'm not going to lie to you, and we'll get to that with the cons. But if you are the kind of person who's just looking for this kind of big, dumb, action, wild movie, and if that's all that's important to you, well, then this is all you need. And with that said, let's get to the cons. But before we do, I want to let you know that this video is sponsored by you. That's right, I'm just an independent channel here without any big corporate sponsors or anything like that, so just by watching the video, you're really helping me out. If you want to be super dope and show your support in the easiest possible way, do me a solid and like the video, and maybe drop a comment down below. Let me know, have you seen all of the MonsterVerse movies, and if so, which one's your favorite? You can also now join as a channel member if you want to help support me financially, or just subscribe for free if you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies coming out. So either way, whatever you do, I appreciate it. All right, on to the cons. All right, dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. This movie is a mess. For one, it looks like a cartoon, and not in a good way. Look, I'm no CG expert at all, in fact, but to me, it didn't look very good at all. It just looked super fake. And I know what you're gonna say, it's a movie about giant monsters that don't exist in a fantasy world inside the center of the earth. Of course it's gonna look fake. But I feel like when I watched some of the prequel movies, like the original Godzilla or the Kong Skull Island movies, like, I feel like it looked more real there. And here, everything is just bright and colorful and fake. And kind of in line with that, a lot of the dialogue and the story structure and even the music, it felt like it was out of a video game. There's a scene at the very beginning of the movie where I straight up thought, wow, this is right out of Metal Gear Solid. Everything is bathed in neon lights or lens flares all over the place. I mean, Michael Bay and J.J. Abrams would be proud is all I'm going to say. It was honestly, and I think I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but it's just the way I feel. It's giving B movie, but with a bit of a budget. And now here's the thing, if you open your heart to that and to the cheese, then it's not going to disappoint. And if I'm being honest, I don't necessarily hate that. But that aside, the writing is atrocious. Whether it's with the super clunky dialogue or the constant, and look at me, dude, I'm telling you, constant exposition, just explaining outwardly every bit of what's happening and who's from where and what's going on with this character. It never stopped. There's a scene where Rebecca Hall's character, and this isn't a spoiler really at all, but there's a scene where someone tells her that the little girl, they tell her that, oh, she's displaced. And Rebecca Hall's character responds with, she's not displaced. She's the last of her people. And then a few seconds later, they cut to Rebecca Hall sitting, I think, at home watching a documentary about Gia's tribe and who they are and where they came from and what happened to them. It's so clumsy. Like, I get it if you want us to have some information that maybe we might not remember from the prior movie, or maybe if for some reason you didn't watch the prior movie and you're coming into this one, but there are better ways to inform your audience without blatantly spelling it out twice in a row. Then there's all the sciencey mumbo jumbo, something will happen and our heroes need to accomplish a task. And instead of actually explaining how they're going to get there, they just say a bunch of nonsense and then have an answer. And, again, I say, if that is the intention of the movie, if they want to skip any need for logic and reasoning and just get to the things getting blowed up real good, then fine, you succeeded. But for those of us that are looking for maybe a little bit more out of our movie, that was a big fail. Aside from that, probably the last thing here is that some of the fights, to me, they kind of bored me. There are moments in the movie, there's a long stretch in the middle where it feels like nothing's happening, although you do have the monsters fighting different monsters. But I think the reason why it felt like nothing was happening, even though there was action on screen, was that there was no weight to it. We didn't care about what was happening. We didn't know the stakes or the characters really. They would try to tell us with more exposition, like, oh, this monster is fighting this monster for this reason. But there was just no weight to it. And so it felt boring, even though you're seeing giant monsters smash into each other and destroy buildings. And yet, despite all of those negatives that I have, who do I think Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire is for? Well, look, if you're a diehard fan of the genre or this series, dude, you're going to crap your pants at this movie. There is so much for diehard fans to enjoy, so many nods to other prior movies and different characters. So if that's you, you're going to love it. And if I'm being honest, I kind of like that that's an option. I like that we're able to get something like this that's just pure fan service and pure action, and at the same time get a movie like Godzilla Minus One, which is, a contemplative exploration into man's cruelty to each other and to nature, and an allegory for the value that we put on life, like all of this deep concept stuff. And we can get that movie at the same time as something like this. I think that's kind of amazing. Okay, I do have two other things though before we get out of here. One is the death toll in this movie. There must have been tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people slaughtered in this movie. And although, it kind of makes sense if these giant monsters are fighting in these major metropolitan areas, like there's going to be a lot of people getting murked. But it did feel a little weird for this kind of a movie that's supposed to be maybe a little more lighthearted to have just wanton slaughter of myriads of people. So that was a bit strange to me. Also, last thing, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire is in theaters at the same time as Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. Godzilla Ghostbusters crossover? I'm just saying, if you're trying to make money, I'd buy that ticket. No, I'm just kidding. But look, if Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire sounds cool to you, definitely check it out in theaters this weekend. If you've already seen it, let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, if you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies coming out, make sure you subscribe. All right, my dude, I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.